Senator Ernst exposed Keith Ellison like never before.
Attorney General Ellison, under your watch, unfortunately, Minnesota has achieved the largest COVID fraud scheme in American history.
During a Senate hearing, Ernst read the Minnesota AG's past statements back to him, and they were so hard to defend that he ended up throwing Tim Walz under the bus to cover himself.
I can only prosecute crimes that the county attorney gives me or that the governor assigns me. I do not have authority to just prosecute anybody I want.
And today we're covering it all. So if you enjoy content that cuts through the noise, hit that subscribe button and let's jump right into it.
I come from a blue-collar working family, a farm family. My parents farmed, they worked very hard. Their parents ahead of them worked very hard to get where we are today. I'm very privileged to sit in this seat today. My sister works for a trucking company. She and her husband farm. My brother is a blue-collar labor union worker for the railroad. Every one of their tax dollars needs to be protected because they work darn hard in all types of weather. They work outside. They don't have the privilege of sitting in a cushy office working 9 to 5. But what we have found in the federal government through years and years of the work that I have done on oversight is that 1 out of every $10 that Americans send to the federal government is squandered away and lost in fraud. We have seen examples like the Quality Leering Center in Minnesota recently, but this is happening in every single state.
To put what Senator Ernst said into numbers, the Government Accountability Office is the place to look at. According to recent estimates, between 2018 and 2022, the federal government lost between $233 billion and $521 billion annually due to fraud. On top of that, since 2003, federal improper payments are estimated at about $2.8 trillion, with 84% tied to overpayments reported by agencies. Just stop and think about that for a second. In a time when even a basic Excel sheet can flag unusual spending, this level of waste is happening. What's even more absurd is the fact that when Doge tried to fix things, we saw Teslas being firebombed, as if the system was trying to protect itself. But that's a topic for another video, because Ernst went on to read Ellison's past statements, so let's take a look at that.
Attorney General Ellison, under your watch, unfortunately, Minnesota has achieved the largest COVID fraud scheme in American history. Under your watch, those whistleblowers who brought attention to the fraud and waste in your state faced retaliation. Under your watch, billions of tax dollars intended for unemployment insurance, supporting hungry children, just as described, children with autism, providing housing for the most vulnerable, keeping small businesses afloat through COVID, and more were instead, all of those dollars were funneled away into fraudulent schemes. So last month in an interview with CNN, you were asked if your office has done enough to stop the fraud. And you responded, "Of course we've done enough." And this is a quote, "Of course we've done enough. And we're doing more every single day. This is a political matter. This is not a serious thing." Those are your words.
Imagine that. A state AG dealing with billions in fraud is actively trying to downplay it as political nonsense. That's dangerous for multiple reasons. First, it shows zero understanding of how accountability actually works, especially coming from the state's top prosecutor. Second, it invites future fraud. When a potential fraudster hears something like this, they'll get encouraged because consequences don't exist for one reason or another. But instead of owning up to it, Keith tried to justify it by doing what's best could be described as mental gymnastics, even going as far as throwing Tim Walz under the bus.
How do I go back to my hardworking brother and my hardworking sister and every other American who's going out there and then sending their taxpayer dollars to Washington, D.C., only to have it squandered away in fraud? How do we respond to them? And how do we recoup those dollars from these programs that Minnesota should have been overseeing?
Senator Ernst, thank you. I really do believe that you're sincerely, earnestly trying to look out for taxpayer dollars. And I'm here to tell you that, of course, we're here to hold people accountable who commit fraud. I've prosecuted and convicted over 300 people since I've been the AG for Medicaid fraud. So I'm with you when you're trying to protect the public dollar. What I was saying in that interview is that rather than coming together on a bipartisan basis to stop fraud, the matter has been turned into a political football, which I bet you probably would agree it shouldn't be. We should come together to protect the public dollar, and it shouldn't be somebody's campaign ad. What we should do is do it together. So what are we doing? First of all, you should know that I can only prosecute crimes that the county attorney gives me or that the governor assigns me. I do not have authority to just prosecute anybody I want.
Look, what he's saying would make perfect sense if it came from someone new in office who actually helped uncover the fraud. But that's not the case here. You see, Ellison has been around this situation for years. Not to mention the fact that back in 2021, while the Minnesota Department of Education was already digging into feeding our future, he met directly with individuals tied to that operation and explicitly told them, "This has my attention. I'm extremely frustrated by it. But we are in the middle of a battle with the agencies now. And I can tell you now, Governor Walz agrees with me that this piddly, stupid stuff running small people out of business is terrible. It's all on tape and was later used in court, which makes it pretty hard to brush aside. Another point is, of course this will get used in political ads. Campaigns are built on moments like these. And voters are going to factor that in when making their decision. Senator Ernst then asked how Congress could better safeguard taxpayer money, and the witness made some solid arguments.
Too often the federal government writes a check and then looks the other way. How should Congress redesign incentives to ensure states have real skin in the game and safeguards taxpayer dollars once those funds have left Washington, D.C.?
Well, thank you, Senator. And you're absolutely right that people respond to incentives, and especially immoral people respond to incentives. And unfortunately, we've had both in federal programs, but especially the way the Walz administration and Attorney General Ellison have overseen those programs in Minnesota, we have seen an enormous loss of our important taxpayer dollars. The Feeding Our Future fraud scandal that we heard about was a situation where there were sites that were supposedly feeding kids where nobody could have fed them. And if Minnesota officials, including Attorney General Ellison's office, which was involved in litigation at that time, had just gone out and checked, they would have been able to find those problems.
Exactly. You can put in all the safeguards in the world, but when it comes down to who's in charge, they oversee the programs, and their priorities shape the outcome. Simply put, if those in power are more focused on optics or avoiding backlash, even going as far as engaging directly with bad actors, the system starts to break down. And once that happens, you're not preventing abuse. You're setting the stage for it to happen again. Let me know in the comments your thoughts on this story. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and remember, you heard it here at the Dais.